Have you ever trusted someone, really trusted them, only to later discover that behind their smile was a plan to destroy you? Now, I know that sounds dramatic, extreme even, but let me ask you something. What if the real danger in your life isn't loud or obvious? What if it isn't the person who argues with you, or even the one who clearly dislikes you? What if the real threat is the one who smiles to your face, listens to your stories, nods kindly, and all the while they're silently plotting your downfall? Let that sink in. You see, the most dangerous people in our lives are not the ones who shout their hatred. It's the ones who conceal it, the ones who walk right beside us, pretending to support us, while secretly studying our weaknesses like a predator tracking prey. And the scariest part? They don't wear masks. They don't raise red flags. In fact, they blend in so perfectly that by the time you start sensing something's wrong, it's already too late. This video isn't about paranoia. It's not about fear-mongering or feeding anxiety. This is about awareness. It's about recognizing patterns that most people overlook until they're already broken, betrayed, or in the worst cases, gone. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 5 deadly signs that someone in your life may not just dislike you, but actually want to harm you. Not metaphorically, literally. These are not random warning signs. They're not vague gut feelings. These are real behavioral patterns backed by psychology, by survivor stories, and by countless case studies where the signs were ignored until it was too late. Why am I doing this? Because I've seen what happens when people ignore their instincts. I've heard too many stories of good-hearted people who were targeted, manipulated, even destroyed by those they trusted most. And I've come to believe one powerful truth: what you don't know can absolutely hurt you. So if something in your life feels off, if someone's behavior doesn't quite add up, but you've been brushing it off, trying to stay reasonable or not dramatic, I want you to watch this video until the end, because what you're about to learn could be the difference between walking away safe or not walking away at all. And I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to empower you, to help you see clearly where others might still be blind, to give you the tools to protect yourself and the confidence to trust your instincts, even when everyone else is fooled by a charming smile. So take a deep breath, get ready, because once you know these 5 signs, you'll never look at certain people the same way again. Let's begin. 1. The silent observer. Now let's talk about the first and perhaps most chilling sign that someone in your life may want to do you real harm. They become what I call the silent observer. This isn't just someone scrolling through your Instagram stories or occasionally liking your photos. No, this is something far more intense and far more calculated. These individuals study you with military-level precision. I'm talking about someone who knows your routine better than you do. They know where you get your morning coffee. They know when you hit the gym. They know your grocery run schedule, even if you've never publicly shared it. Creepy? Yeah, but also incredibly dangerous. Here's the twist. They do it so subtly, so seamlessly, that you often don't realize you're being watched. They'll never let you see the strings. They'll never tip their hand, because their goal isn't to be seen, it's to gather information in silence. And you might be wondering, how do they know so much? Well, maybe it's not from you directly. Maybe they're watching the stories your friends post. Maybe they overheard you talking about your weekend plans at the office. Or maybe, just maybe, they've been quietly following you. Not just online, but in real life. Have you ever run into someone unexpectedly over and over again? Maybe they suddenly started showing up at your gym. Same time, same place. Maybe they just happened to be at the cafe you love. More than once. Maybe they bumped into you in 3 different locations within a week. Sure, once is coincidence. Twice? Maybe. But 3 times or more? That's not random. That's reconnaissance. Let me be absolutely clear. This isn't just weird. It's not just awkward. This is the first major red flag that someone may be targeting you. They're not just angry or jealous. They're not holding a grudge. They're studying your life like a blueprint, learning your habits, identifying your vulnerabilities, waiting for an opening. And that's what makes this type of person so dangerous. They don't come at you in rage. They come at you with patience, with planning, with purpose. They're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. So here's what you need to do right now. Start noticing who's always around, even when they shouldn't be. Pay attention to the people who seem to know things about your life that you never told them. And most importantly, trust your gut. If something feels off about someone's consistent presence in your routine, don't ignore it. I once had a close friend, let's call her Emily, who kept running into the same guy at her local bookstore, then again at her yoga studio, and once even at a hiking trail 45 minutes outside the city. At first she thought, what a weird coincidence. But by the fourth or fifth encounter, she started to feel watched. And sure enough, he later admitted he had been following her for weeks, just trying to figure out the best time to talk. Let me say this again. Predators don't always look like predators. Sometimes they wear polite smiles and pretend to be curious. Sometimes they say, just passing by, when in reality, they've been keeping tabs on you for months. Knowledge is power, but awareness is survival. Recognize the signs, take your patterns seriously, and if you ever feel like someone knows too much about your life, ask yourself, did I offer that information, or did they take it without asking? Because the silent observer doesn't want your friendship. They want control. They want advantage, and sometimes they want the moment when you're completely alone, completely vulnerable, and completely unaware. But not anymore. You're awake now. And in the next part of this video, we're going to expose the second deadly sign, one even more subtle and just as dangerous, the saboteur strategy. Stay with me. What you don't know could hurt you, but what you're about to learn could save your life. 2. The saboteur strategy. Let me tell you a story that might sound all too familiar. Her name was Sarah. She was bright, well-liked at work, and always the first to show up and the last to leave. Her career was on the rise, her friendships solid, until one day everything began to unravel. It started with small things. A project she didn't get credit for, a missed meeting that she was sure she never got the email for, a friend at work suddenly acting cold and distant without explanation. At first, Sarah thought maybe it was just bad luck, or that she was being too sensitive. But as the weeks went on, the pattern grew louder. Her reputation was slowly crumbling, and she didn't understand why. That is, until she connected the dots. There was one person at her job, a co-worker who always seemed nice, who smiled often, who even offered to help her when she was overwhelmed. But behind that smile was a carefully hidden weapon, the saboteur strategy. Now listen closely, because what happened to Sarah happens to thousands of people every day. This is not just someone being mean or difficult. This is someone with a calculated plan to dismantle your life, one piece at a time. Here's how it works. The saboteur doesn't attack you directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, they start planting seeds, quiet rumors, casual comments designed to make others doubt your credibility. They might say things like, yeah, I heard she's struggling to keep up. Or, honestly, I'm a little concerned about his emotional stability lately. It's never loud, never aggressive. But over time, these subtle whispers become a shadow that follows you into every room. Next, they create conflict that seems unrelated. A misunderstanding here, a miscommunication there. But if you step back and look at the big picture, you'll see a pattern, because it's not chaos, it's strategy. And perhaps most dangerously, they do all of this while pretending to be your ally. They'll comfort you when things go wrong. They'll say, I don't know why people are treating you like this, but I've got your back. Meanwhile, they're the very ones lighting the match behind the scenes. It's psychological warfare, and most people don't recognize it until the damage is already done. Now, you might be wondering, why would someone do this? Jealousy, insecurity, a thirst for control. Whatever the reason, the result is the same: isolation, confusion, and collapse. But here's the good news. You can protect yourself, and it starts with awareness. First, document everything. Don't rely on memory when things start to feel off. Keep records of emails, messages, and interactions, especially those that feel manipulative or strange. Second, pay attention to patterns. Are the same people involved in multiple accidents or misunderstandings? That's not coincidence, it's coordination. Third, build a circle of trusted people who know your character well. You need people in your corner who won't be swayed by rumors, people who can see through the manipulation and stand by you when the saboteur strikes. I'll be honest, dealing with someone like this is emotionally exhausting. It can make you question your sanity, your value, and your place in the world. But don't let them win, because once you see the saboteur for who they truly are, they lose their power. So let me ask you, has there been someone in your life who means well, but somehow things always go wrong around them? Have you felt yourself slowly shrinking, doubting yourself, apologizing for things you didn't do? You owe it to yourself to take a step back and look clearly, because the saboteur doesn't destroy you in one big blow. They do it brick by brick until you don't recognize the life you're standing in. But now you see it. You're no longer in the dark. And in the next part of this video, we're going to uncover another chilling sign: the false friend facade. Someone who doesn't just sabotage you from afar, but gets so close they become your confidant before they strike. Stick around. This could be the wake-up call that changes everything. 3. The false friend facade. Let's talk about one of the most deceptive and dangerous types of people you could ever let into your life. They don't come at you with threats. They don't sabotage you from afar. A number of these people get close, real close. They listen, they comfort, they ask questions, they act like they care. But behind that warm smile is a hidden motive. And what they're building isn't a friendship, it's a weapon. This is the false friend facade. And if you're not paying attention, they can become the person you trust most, right before they break you from the inside. Let me ask you something. Has anyone in your life suddenly taken a big interest in you? Maybe they barely noticed you before, but now they're texting constantly, asking about your routines, your fears, your family. At first, it feels flattering, like someone finally sees you, finally cares. But then the questions keep coming. What time do you usually leave for work? Do you live alone? Do you and your mom still talk every weekend? These aren't just friendly curiosities. These are data points, strategically gathered information to map out your vulnerabilities. And here's what makes this tactic so terrifying. The false friend doesn't just want your trust, they want access to your life, to your home, to the places where you feel safe. They'll charm your coworkers, bond with your siblings, get invited to family barbecues, and all the while they're learning exactly how to get in close without setting off alarms. Now I know some of you might be thinking, but what if they really are just being friendly? And hey, some people are. Not everyone has a dark agenda. But here's the difference. A real friend doesn't push past your boundaries. A real friend respects your privacy. A real friend doesn't make you feel like you're slowly handing over pieces of your soul in exchange for validation. The false friend, though, they want everything. They want to know what makes you tick, so they can use it later. They want to know what you're afraid of, so they can exploit it when it matters most. Let me share a story. A man I once knew, we'll call him Josh, had a friend who showed up during a rough patch in his life. Divorce, job loss, struggling with depression. This guy seemed like a godsend. He listened, brought food, even helped Josh reconnect with old friends. But over time, Josh noticed something odd. His personal struggles were being talked about behind his back. Private stories he'd shared in confidence were now gossip. And worse, when Josh finally got a new job, that same friend applied for a position at the company and started spreading lies about him to HR. You see, this man didn't want to help. He wanted to replace him. He wanted access to Josh's world, only to rip it apart from within. And it started with friendly questions and fake concern. That's the power of the false friend facade. They don't need to break in, they get invited in. So here's your wake-up call. If someone in your life suddenly becomes overly interested in your routines, ask for detailed information about your fears, habits, and schedule. Starts inserting themselves into every part of your life, work, family, home. Stop and ask yourself, what do they really want? Because genuine connection takes time. It grows from shared experience, not strategic intimacy. You don't owe anyone full access to your life just because they act nice. You have the right to protect your peace, to set boundaries, to hold back. In fact, in today's world, your privacy is your power. So be kind, but be cautious. Be open, but not wide open. And above all, listen to your instincts. If someone feels too good to be true, don't ignore the whisper inside telling you to slow down. Because the false friend isn't here to lift you up. They're here to get close, so they can tear you down from the inside out. And in the next part of this video, we're going to reveal another terrifying tactic used by those with dark intentions. The escalating aggressor. It starts with a joke and ends with a threat. You don't want to miss it. Stick with me. What you learn next could save your life. 4. The escalating aggressor. Let me paint a picture for you. You're at work or maybe at a social gathering, and someone you know makes a strange joke. They lean in and say something like, "I could kill you right now." Then laugh, wave it off and say, "Relax, I'm just joking." But something about it doesn't feel funny. Or maybe they show you their knife collection or flash a gun tucked in their waistband, not to threaten you directly, but casually, like it's just something normal people do. At first, you hesitate to say anything. You tell yourself, "I'm overreacting. They're just being weird." But you're not overreacting. What you've just witnessed is the beginning stage of something much darker. This is what I call the escalating aggressor. Unlike the false friend who hides behind kindness, this type of person tests you out in the open, but still just beneath the line of what's clearly threatening. They don't strike immediately. Instead, they escalate in small, controlled steps, watching your every reaction like a lab experiment. Because here's their real game. They're testing your boundaries. And every time you don't push back, every time you laugh nervously and let it slide, they go a little further. First it's words, then it becomes physical. They stand too close. They brush up against you accidentally. They block your path in a hallway and laugh it off. But make no mistake, this is calculated. They're not being awkward. They're gauging your threshold. Now let me ask you, have you ever known someone who constantly joked about violence, but always smiled while doing it? Or someone whose body language felt invasive, always in your space, making you uncomfortable, but never giving you enough reason to call them out? That's not a coincidence. That's a predator slowly turning up the heat to see when or if you'll notice. Here's the terrifying part. The more you tolerate, the bolder they become. That offhanded joke, it evolves into a more direct statement. That accidental shove becomes a deliberate push, and before you know it, they're crossing lines you never even realized had been drawn. It's a slow dance of domination. They're not just testing your reaction, they're training you to accept discomfort as normal. And that is exactly what makes this person so dangerous. Because by the time you realize what's happening, they've already conditioned you to stay silent. Let me be blunt. If someone jokes about hurting you, that's not a joke, it's a probe. If someone touches you in a way that makes your skin crawl, even if it's subtle, that's not a mistake. It's a message. And your silence? That's their green light. So what do? You call it what it is. You set the boundary immediately and clearly. You don't play along. You don't laugh it off. You say, "That's not funny." You step back, you leave the room. You let them know. You saw it, you felt it, and you won't accept it. Because these people thrive in ambiguity. They depend on your politeness, your hesitation, your fear of overreacting. Don't give it to them. And if you're worried about seeming dramatic, let me remind you, your safety matters more than someone else's comfort. There was a young woman named Lena I once spoke to. She worked in retail and had a regular customer who made disturbing jokes every time he came in. He'd say things like, "I bet you'd look good duct taped to a chair." Then wink. People laughed. She laughed because she didn't know what else to do. Until one day he followed her to her car. She told me, "It started with a joke, and I ignored the first 10 signs." Don't be Lena. Don't wait for a joke to become a nightmare. Because the escalating aggressor doesn't start with violence, they build toward it. Your awareness, your boundaries, and your voice are your first line of defense. And in the next part of this video, we'll explore the final and most dangerous type of all, the one who waits, watches, and plays the long game. The patient predator. Stick with me, because when it comes to your safety, you can't afford to miss what's coming next. 5. The patient predator. Let's talk about the most dangerous kind of person. Not the loud ones, not the aggressive ones, not even the ones who joke about hurting you. No, the most dangerous kind is the one who waits, the one who smiles, the one who seems safe until it's far too late. This is what I call the patient predator. And if you've never heard of this type before, pay close attention, because they're not easy to spot. Not because they hide, but because they blend in perfectly. The patient predator doesn't act out of impulse or rage. They don't lash out in the heat of the moment. They wait, they study, they plan, months or even years in advance. They become the helpful coworker, the friendly neighbor, the reliable friend you feel lucky to have in your life. They celebrate your wins, they listen when you vent. They ask thoughtful questions like, "So when's your next trip again?" Or, "When are you thinking of retiring?" They might even remember your dog's name or bring you coffee just the way you like it. But here's the unsettling truth. They're not asking because they care. They're asking because they're mapping your future. The patient predator plays the long game. They want to know when you'll be vulnerable, when you'll be away, when you'll be distracted, when you'll be isolated. And once they've built your trust, once they've memorized your patterns, they wait for the perfect moment to strike. And that's exactly what makes them so terrifying. Everything feels normal. In fact, it feels better than normal, because they've crafted an image that's just believable enough, just helpful enough, just kind enough to disarm you completely. Let me ask you something. Have you ever known someone who just seemed to know too much about your life? Someone who was always there, but never too close to raise suspicion? Someone who asked about your future plans with a little too much interest, like they were taking mental notes? That's not curiosity, that's calculation. And here's the worst part. Because the patient predator moves so slowly, so quietly, you won't realize what's happening until the damage is already done. I once spoke to a man, let's call him David, who had a friend he met through a community event. This man helped him move, dog sat when David was out of town, and even attended a few family gatherings. Everyone liked him. But over time, David noticed subtle things. This friend knew when he'd be out of town without ever asking. He showed up at places David had casually mentioned weeks earlier. He asked strange, out-of-place questions like, "If your wife ever left for a week, would you stay home alone?" David brushed it off. He didn't want to seem rude or suspicious. A year later, while David was on a solo work trip, someone broke into his home. No signs of forced entry, nothing on the cameras. But what was taken? Not electronics, not money, documents, personal files, journals. To this day, David believes it was someone close, someone who waited for the perfect opportunity. That's the patient predator. They don't break the door down, they wait for you to leave it unlocked. So what can you do? Start by trusting your instincts, not just when something feels wrong, but even when something feels too perfect. Be cautious with people who show an unusual interest in your long-term plans. Keep your personal routines and upcoming travel private, even with those you trust. And remember, boundaries are not rude, they're necessary. You don't owe anyone full access to your life just because they're helpful or friendly. True friends don't need a roadmap to your every move. And safe people don't keep a mental calendar of your most vulnerable moments. The truth is, being nice is not a personality. It's a tactic for some. So be kind, yes, but never be naive. Because the world has wolves who dress like sheep. And the most dangerous ones? They're not the ones who bark. They're the ones who wait and smile. This brings us to the end of this video, but not the end of the lesson. You've now learned about 5 critical warning signs: the silent observer, the saboteur, the false friend, the escalating aggressor, and now the patient predator. If any of these patterns feel familiar, don't ignore that feeling, because what you just learned isn't paranoia, it's protection. And what you do with this knowledge could be the difference between becoming a target or walking away with your peace, your power, and your life intact. Let's take a moment to bring everything together. You've just learned about 5 chilling signs, not of ordinary conflict, but of something far more dangerous. Let's recap them one more time. 1. The silent observer, the one who watches your every move without you noticing. 2. The saboteur, who quietly destroys your support system from the inside out. 3. The false friend, who gains your trust only to gather weapons from your vulnerability. The escalating aggressor, who tests your boundaries with subtle threats and growing intimidation. 5. The patient predator, who plays the long game, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. These aren't just personality quirks. They're not red flags you can afford to brush off. If any of these patterns sound familiar, you need to understand something very clearly. You're not just dealing with someone who dislikes you. You could be dealing with someone who is capable of causing serious, irreversible harm. And that's not fear-mongering. That's reality. Because the most dangerous people often don't look dangerous. They don't shout. They don't chase. They wait. They blend in. And they use your trust, your silence, and your doubt against you. So what now? Don't just walk away from this video thinking, wow, that was interesting. Do something. Save this video. Share it with someone who may be in a situation they don't fully understand yet. Start documenting your instincts. When something feels off, write it down. And most importantly, take action when action is required. Remember, knowledge is your first line of defense, but it's your action that keeps you alive. And before we go, there's something else you need to see. The patterns we just discussed often go hand in hand with another dangerous personality, the covert narcissist. They charm, manipulate, and mask their intentions so skillfully that you won't recognize the damage until you're standing in the wreckage. If you haven't already, make sure to watch our next video on how to spot covert narcissists, because sometimes the people who smile the widest are hiding the darkest truths. If this video resonated with you, don't leave quietly. Drop a comment below. Tell me which part hit home for you. Hit that like button so this message can reach others. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more content that protects your peace, your mind, and your life. You never know who you might help by simply sharing this video. Your awareness could save someone else's future. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.